Well, it's been a very big week, as they say, and it is with a deep sense of responsibility that I stand here this morning to speak against this bill, perhaps in the hope that we can amend it, but I fear ultimately to oppose this bill. And that deep sense of responsibility is there because I know that there are millions upon millions of Victorians who are looking at this place today, indeed who are looking at us today for relief, who are looking at us because they want their freedom back, they want their lives back, they want their jobs back, they want their families back. They do not wish to be held in total contempt by a government that wants to control their lives, every minute of their lives, on a daily basis. And, you know, last night, my own daughter, my own 14-year-old daughter, I had to console as she cried on my shoulder because she hadn't seen her friends for months. That's happening in houses right across Victoria. What a pity Daniel Andrews doesn't give a stuff. I want to pay tribute to the people of Victoria because they put up with a hell of a lot this year, an enormous amount this year. And it has been exceedingly difficult, and Ms Patton over there is having a chortle about it, but it has been exceedingly difficult for huge numbers of people across this state. And the suffering that they have experienced has been quite phenomenal. But then last Monday, the Premier got up at his daily press conference where he tells Victorians that it's our fault and that we should be ashamed of ourselves and that he's going to punish us again. He stopped hectoring us for just a moment to just casually drop that he's going to extend his total control over everybody for another 12 months. Well, all hell broke loose. Across Victoria, all hell broke loose. And I would hazard a guess that in every electorate office of every member of this parliament in Victoria, the phones went into meltdown. The emails that I've received, I have never seen a response like in my years in this parliament. So I congratulate the people who felt compelled, some for the first time in their lives, to contact members of parliament to express their views, and more, to express their anger, their dismay. We had people on the phone in tears, hysterical at what they were, or expressing their fears as to what was about to happen. One of my electorate officers used to be a social worker. She said, "I feel like I'm back at the coalface," and surely she was. Now, I have to say to you, Mr. Acting President, I'm not a COVID denier, as they say. My wife is a nurse, and she works in a hospital that has 2 floors of people suffering from the Wuhan virus. So I am perfectly aware that it is a problem, it is a threat, but I'm also aware that we have handled this, not we, the government has handled this very, very badly. I am acutely aware, as indeed are most Victorians, that this government has stuffed this up left, right and centre. What this bill is about is trust. What Daniel Andrews is saying to this parliament and to the people of Victoria is, trust me and I'll give you a call back in March. Well, I don't think people are going to fall for that. Maybe people in here will fall for that, but the people of Victoria are certainly not going to fall for that because they know, and there are some members in this House know, that Daniel Andrews can't be trusted. They know that. That is, I think, indisputable in many people's minds. Now, we have to go back to the point where the trust broke down between the Premier and the people. You might remember early this year when we had the first outbreaks, I think the Premier had quite a bit of support in what he was doing. In fact, we saw a situation where community transmission had been almost entirely eliminated. We thought we had the virus beaten. We thought that it was over, and we were pretty jubilant. And I recall saying on Sky News, felt a bit like George Bush on the deck of the warship, that we had this thing beaten. Then, of course, something happened. Something happened in the quarantine hotels that the Premier and the government had organised for reasons that are totally beyond anybody's understanding. Still, somebody in the government, some minister, and it must have been at a ministerial level. I know that they're trying to, the government is trying to pass the blame onto a bureaucrat here, but this decision must have been at a ministerial level. For some reason, they decided they didn't want the ADF. They did not want the Australian Defence Force protecting our quarantine hotels. Instead, they chose incompetent, unprepared, and as it turned out, randy, security guards to guard people in the quarantine hotels. And as a result of that, the virus was let back into the community, and we have seen the bushfire that followed. We have seen the deaths that have followed. We have seen the new case levels that have followed. You know, it's only a couple of weeks ago we had 700 new cases a day, 600, 700 a day. Just quite extraordinary. That happened because this government failed to protect the community. This government failed to protect the people of this state. That's why we're in the situation that we're in today. That's why we are holding this debate today, because the Andrews government failed the people of Victoria. Now, I know that we have an inquiry at the minute, but let's face facts. That so-called judicial inquiry, and it's not really a judicial inquiry, but that inquiry, well, the terms of reference of that inquiry, they were designed to protect ministers. The terms of reference of that inquiry were designed to cover up the truth. So I don't think that we're going to find out from the state inquiry what's going on, but I'm certainly looking forward to the federal inquiry when ministers and the Premier, I'm hoping, will be held to account and made to explain exactly the decision-making process that they that they were involved in. Now, this bill, as we've discussed a little bit earlier, this bill, a crucially important one for millions of Victorians. We saw it, the opposition saw it, the crossbench saw it at 4 o'clock yesterday. 4 o'clock yesterday. We saw the final draft after this debate had actually begun. Now, I don't know how this government expects us to take them seriously when they treat the parliament in the way that he has. Now, it's only a couple of weeks ago the Premier said the opposition is irrelevant. The fact of the matter is today he's also told the crossbench that it is irrelevant. He's told the government that it is irrelevant. The members, his own members, backbench and a good number of frontbenchers, that they are irrelevant. That is what we are dealing with in this state at the moment. A Premier who is so in love with himself, a Premier who is so enamoured of his own power that he can tell anybody to go away in not so pleasant terms. The contempt for the people is quite extraordinary. And we saw that on Sunday when he got up and he announced, we're going to have a plan for you tomorrow. We're going to have a plan, a comeback plan for you tomorrow. Then he got up yesterday and he said, oh, no, that plan that I was going to have for you today, no, in fact, it'll be next Sunday. Now, if the Premier was serious about a plan, and let's face facts, there is no plan, but if the Premier was serious about having a plan, wouldn't he have announced it before the vote on this bill today? Wouldn't he have told Victorians, wouldn't he have told this Parliament exactly what he had in mind before we voted on this bill today? Of course he would have. Of course it would have. But the fact of the matter is he has no plan. He is no plan Dan. And he has no idea, apart from the fact he wants to shut Victorians down. He wants to keep families locked up. He wants to keep mothers from daughters. He wants to keep sons from fathers. Father's Day coming up on Sunday. Millions of Victorians can't see their dad. Thanks, Dan. What a great job. What a great job he's doing. It is just extraordinary when we consider that this government is asking us to trust them, When yesterday it was announced that we had 41 deaths overnight. Now, I heard that figure, it was absolutely I was stunned. 41 dead, it was horrific. It was only later in the day that we discovered that 33 of the 41 who had died had passed away last month. Now, what is this government trying to pull? What sort of figures are as rubbery as the ones that the government is trying to shove down our throats on a daily basis? We heard just recently from the Chief Health Officer, Professor Sutton, a sex symbol in his own right, I understand now. We heard from him that anyone who has COVID-19 and dies is automatically counted as a victim of the Wuhan virus. Doesn't matter if the virus killed them or not, they're counted anyway. Doesn't matter about the comorbidity that they may carry. It may have been cancer that killed them. It may have been a heart attack that killed them. It may have been a whole range of things that killed them, but as far as the government and the Chief Health Officer is concerned, it was in fact the virus that killed them, and they will be counted in the daily totals. So what we're seeing here, a government that is putting out figures that are inflating death rates, are inflating community anxiety. We are seeing a government that is not being honest with the people. We are seeing a Premier who refuses to be honest with the people. And that's what Victorians crave more than anything else. They just want this Premier to be honest with them. They want him to show some responsibility. They want him to stand up and they want him to say, I stuffed this up. I made a mess. Yes, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Now, if I live to be 300, I don't think I'm going to hear those words from the Premier ever. I'm not sure he's ever said sorry to anyone, to anyone ever, and that is a major concern. So far, he's blamed families, he's blamed the multicultural communities. This week, he's blamed blokes having barbecues. He'll blame anyone, but he refuses himself to accept the responsibility that is so clearly his. At the same time that he refuses to accept that responsibility, at the same time he's pointing fingers everywhere. It's your fault, your fault, your fault, your fault. He's asking us to trust him. He's asking us to believe him when he says he will not use the power in the future that he has used so badly up until this point. He's closed down the Parliament, and he wants us to continue. He wants to give the lower house another 6 months off. Well, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't any Premier like to have a situation where they are not under any parliamentary oversight for another 6 months? This government is putrid. It is putrid. It holds the community in contempt, a community which is suffering, a community which is in real pain, and a community which holds this government in equal contempt.